Yeah, good, thank you. Good, not too
Yeah.
bad. Just been at my rehab this morning, so my knee's a bit like tender.
Oh
Other than
yeah.
that, I'm good. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. Yeah, not too bad. I mean, the knee looked pretty heavy, so I bet you're glad you're sort of on the mend with that.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I've still got like my recovery's 9 to 12 months post-op till I'm back playing, so it's huge. I'm month one down,
Yeah,
so I'm trying to like be really optimistic about the whole thing, but it's just so long.
yeah.
But
Especially
yeah,
when it's such like a massive part of your life, which it clearly is. Obviously, I've sort of followed you and see what you get up to, so I can only imagine it's absolutely like cabin fever for you.
it was so. I'm such an active person. I'm always out and about, and I was like, "This is bad." Like, it's affected. If you didn't realize what happens, like, affected work. It's obviously playing football, like going to the gym, everything. But I can't moon. Like, I've had the operation, which a lot of people have to wait a long time for.
Mm.
For some reason, magical. I got through straight through. Sorry, and I didn't have to wait too long.
Yeah, yeah. It's boxed off now, isn't it? It's sort of like you can just, like you said, be optimistic and keep looking forward. So
Yeah.
we touched on obviously the football a little bit then. So what I like to do, obviously, it's selfish from my point of view as well, for get to know you a little bit better. And I think always starting at the beginning is the best place to start with someone. So football, massive part of your life. Has that always been the case? Did it have a big factor in sort of you growing up and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So football was something that I kind of didn't really have a choice but to get involved in. So where I grew up in Skelmersdale, my bedroom window looks out onto a big football playing field, and I grew up with my brother and my dad, and they were big Liverpool fans. Literally, they used to chuck me over the wall, and I'd be playing football from like the ages of like 8 or 9. And to be honest, I loved it. I loved the game. I loved when we set up the team when I was younger. The team that I played for, and yeah, and obviously it's kind of gone on to be the center of my life in many different ways.
Well, that's amazing. And sort of like you said, though, you sort of got thrown into it, like your brother and your dad. And was that sort of like a big thing of just having them, male role models for get into it, but also, like it's one of them things I've seen from growing up, and especially from where I'm from in Wigan with rugby and things. Girls play with boys right up until a certain age, don't they? And then it sort of like dwindles out a little bit from there. So obviously we'll get into what you do with miss kicks and things like that. But it's amazing to see that you're really trying to put it back into the community. How was that for you? You'd sort of, I don't want to sort of guess your story, but I imagine you did play and then it got to a certain age where it went a lot less available, maybe.
Yeah, so my story in terms of my footballing journey was I started off playing at grassroots under 10s. My dad set up the local team. And then when I was 14, I went and signed for Liverpool. So I played at the academy there till I was 17, and then went and played at Man City as well for a season at the reserves level. And when I was 18, I got released from sort of the academy setup. And back then, this was what, 10 years ago now, there wasn't a pipeline or a professional career option for me as a female in the game. So at 18, you're looking at your prospects and you're thinking, I can either keep pushing forward here and trying to reach football at the highest level, but is that ever going to create a life for me? And at that point in time, it didn't. Instead, I kind of football took a bit of a backseat for me, and I played at university level, and then kind of jumped around and played for Wigan and Chorley, and obviously started playing again this season. Yeah, it's amazing to see how the game has grown, and talking about male role models. It's when you speak to a lot of the girls my age, around like who inspired them, a lot of it is the dad or the brother. But it's really interesting now seeing how the game's grown and how it's more normal for girls to play, and they're just being inspired by the lionesses, which what I didn't have when I was younger. So the landscape's definitely changed, and it's a really exciting space to be in. And I wish sometimes I was like 6 or 7 now. I feel
Yeah.
like I missed the boat a bit, but I'm dead happy with in terms of what the girls have access to now in England for football.
Yeah, and you see it across, a lot more sports coming in. I had Amy O'Keefe on. I know you know Amy a little
Yeah,
bit, and she's obviously with the England Red Roses in the rugby union, and sort of the way the game's changed in that regard. But I sort of wanted to ask you, you mentioned, I mean, the Lionesses winning when they did the Euros was massive, wasn't it, for the game? And it is really full circle now to see that there is female role models in the sport, because it provided a lot of, like, I imagine, optimism to be like, oh well, this is it now. It's almost mainstream, and then it did very much become, when they did that it sort of cemented it and solidified it. But before that, obviously, we'll get into miss kicks and why we're here, sort of thing. How did that even come about? How did you even sort of come up with this idea, and where did it start first and foremost?
So I was in my third year of university, so I was doing psychology at the University of Manchester. Don't know why, just really enjoyed it, and I had one more year left. And in my third year, I actually did an optional placement year, and it's a bit of like a curveball answer, but it really is sort of like a point as to why I set up the brand. But I was basically volunteering in a homeless shelter where I'm from in Skem, and it was for young people, so people aged 16 to 24. And at that point, I kind of came out of football, and I was kind of like done with it, and I'd been released, and I was still kind of stung a bit by that. But I remember being in that environment with those young people, and they did this event where they were asked to set up a business, and they were like making things, and I was just supporting them doing that. And I thought, wow, like I have so many opportunities still as a young person, and I have like a roof over my head and resources, and I could go to uni. Like, why am I feeling sorry for myself still all these years on? And I just thought, it kind of sparks in my brain, like, do you know what, if I was to set up a business, like what could my business be? And I thought football. And then I just kind of thought about like my experiences growing up and being a girl, and I was always wearing boys kits, and like the boys always put first, and I just thought this could be something special here. Like, there's definitely a gap, and there's definitely a need within the market for like a women specific brand, because it's something that I felt like I missed when I was little. So yeah, just being in that environment inspired me. I didn't have any experience, didn't like, I'd never studied business, so it was very scrappy in those early days. But I think that real like purpose driven approach, and having a brand that really stood for something, and something that I experienced was something that other girls around me had experienced, really connected with them. So yeah, we all kind of kicked off at uni third year, and I didn't really look back since. I remember graduating, and everyone was applying for like graduate jobs and thinking about what they were going to do, and I literally came home to my mum and dad and was like, I'm doing this brand, I'm going to set up this business. Had no money, and they supported me. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
was very lucky in that regard.
and did you ever anticipate where it got to today?
It's weird because when I get asked this question, I think when I set it up, I didn't realize the potential of what Miss Kit could be. It
Mm.
was just an idea that I had, and eventually over time, when you're kind of like testing out products and you're meeting people and you're putting your brand in front of people and you can see how excited people are by it, you think, oh, maybe this is something interesting and something that is needed. So at the beginning, no, it was just kind of like, it was just something fun that I enjoyed doing, and I was just learning so much about business and product, and um promoting the game that I loved so much, that it wasn't really like a logical business decision. It was just more like it was a good thing to do. And then over time, you start to think, right, okay, this could be like something serious.
Yeah.
And it's nowhere near like where I want it to be right now. It's come a long way, don't get me wrong, from like I was literally like in this room in t-shirts myself like 5 years ago. Like, has come a long way, but the journey's just started for us, I think. And I'm very passionate and driven to keep pushing that forward, see where we can take it.
100%. I mean, you can just see sort of like the way you speak about it and the passion you have about it. It's like, gives me a bit of chills. It's always interesting when you speak to
No.
people who have like such passion in things, and you can just tell straight away. Like when I've had other people on who have sort of took a passion into a business or something a little bit more further than just like a hobby or anything like that, when you can just sort of tell where they are. But I want to go again, maybe a bit back to the start. You said that it wasn't something that you had a lot of experience with. You just sort of rode it, went into it, like grabbed the bull by the horns. What were looking back now, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced starting it?
I think being a product clothing brand, it's like, where do you even get that from?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have like an idea and you want to do like t-shirts, but like, where do you even source that from? That was a big challenge. And again, that was just trial and error and asking people. And I think looking back, like getting that product right was probably the most important thing we needed to do. I probably skipped over it at the beginning, and it comes back to haunt you if you don't focus on that. So I think just naturally setting that up, and then as the business starts to do well, or you start to see a bit of traction, it's like how you take that to the next level and how you scale it. That was pretty difficult. We went from it just being myself to we had like a team of 5 people at one point. So understanding like the dynamics of running a business while trying to like lead people finding products. There's honestly so many challenges. I think even just being able to know how to protect your brand as well. I was very fortunate that I had some great mentors along the way who, you know, are still involved early doors for me. And you've got to trademark that name, you've got to get your domain sorted, all those things where if you don't have them in the later on in the future, like, you're screwed. It's understanding all that, understanding like finance and accounting and how you publish, like there's so much like
Yeah.
challenge. But I don't say that to put anyone off. I say that in that, like, it is just a journey and it's just about figuring it out. And if I can do it, like, you can literally just, it's just about enthusiasm, passion, and just trying to like learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, which is easier said than done.
Yeah. So when you look back now, I'm assuming there was times when you thought, this just isn't for me, or maybe like it became too much. What was the mindset, or was it, you mentioned there about having mentors and people like that? What were the, the deciding factors on keeping you on this passion and sort of reaching, well, not reaching the goal, but
Yeah.
keep building the brand and making it something more?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy when I think back. Like, there's been moments where even like we had a tough year last year. We're thankfully out of it now. Where like it could have gone, all that hard work could have just disappeared. It's tough, and you've got like certain people around telling you to like pack it in. Like, it's time to close shop. It's time to pack it in. And at no point in my brain was I going to let this thing die. Like, it's crazy. And I think it's just in those moments you see things online about like how people describe how tomorrow could be the day it could all change, or like this is the moment where most people give up. So like, you don't give up at this moment in time. But don't get me wrong, there's been moments where like in my brain I thought, oh, maybe this is gonna go wrong. And I think that's normal. I think sometimes as founders and entrepreneurs, we're kind of promoted to be like headstrong and like we never felt it was gonna fail, like blah 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 blah. But it's normal because especially startup life, it's so up and down. So yeah, there has been big challenges and moments where I've thought that, but I think just as people that we are, you just find a way to make it work. I can't give you an answer other than like you just got to wake up the next day and just keep believing in it, which is that's fluffy feedback,
No,
but
it makes perfect sense. But I was gonna like pick a little bit more at that. Do you think the passion has a massive factor on that? Do you think because obviously you're so passionate about it, it's so close to your heart? Do you think that gives you almost feel accountable to that passion?
yeah, and it's like it's not even about me, it's about like what Miss Kick means to women and girls. Like, if that was to end, what message does that send out? Like, I know how much this brand means to so many in the UK, and yeah, that passion definitely drives through. And I obviously still believe in it. Like, if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't still be pushing it. So there must just be something inside me that just keeps on going.
And we'll get into it in a little while, but you obviously mentioned there about, it means a lot to a lot of people, and the brand itself is, like at the forefront of the message that, you want to deliver about the women's game and like football, grassroots and things like that. How does that responsibility feel?
I'm very grateful to be in the position that I am, and to be able to be a role model, hopefully, and inspire young women and girls. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you do feel an amount of pressure and you don't want to let people down, and it's hard, when you can't be perfect all the time. if
No, of
if there's
course.
like a product goes out and it's faulty, it's like stab to me heart, or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's things
Yeah.
where you can't control it, but it's nice to be able to create a platform and to create a brand that girls look up to, because like I mentioned earlier, that was something that I really felt like I missed as a girl. So, we get messages all the time from parents and the girls themselves just saying how like, oh my gosh, like, it's a Miss Kicks, like, what it's done for my daughter, or like, and that's what it's all about. And I'm very fortunate now from like a business perspective. I can't forget that like women's football has grown. I'm very lucky in that regard. How it's just, I've always said women's football is kind of like the next big thing. I was saying this like 6 years ago, but not as big as I didn't think it was going to get
Yeah.
as big as it has. Like that, like you
Yeah.
said, the Lionesses winning was such like a pinnacle
Yeah.
moment.
It just propelled it into like the stratosphere, didn't it? It just went from
Yeah,
one thing to just the next completely.
exactly. So yeah, it has its challenges, but it's good fun as well.
Yeah. And so it's not just a clothing brand, is it? There's a lot more to it than that. So if you want to explain that, because I'll probably just butcher it, but I
No,
thought, we'll let the person who come up with it explain what it is.
So Miss Kick is split into two pillars. So we have, like you mentioned, the brand, which is the business, and that's all about creating product that's inclusive and tailored towards women and girls, whether that's on pitch product. So looking at different silhouettes and shapes of product to make sure that every type of female who wants to wear a kit is wearing a kit that she feels comfortable in, and then creating some off-pitch product as well, so like she can show that she plays football and feels represented in like a hoodie or a t-shirt. So that's like the business and the brand, and that's like the main revenue driver, and um like the main part. And then the second pillar is our charity, which I don't think a lot of people know about, but we have Miss Kick Foundation charity. And it's funny, like back in the day when it was just like me with my t-shirt, I'd always leave a percentage aside, and that would go towards like the local girls team or buying kit. And like when I set the brand up, it wasn't just about like building a business, it was about creating a movement and actually giving back. And obviously as the brand's got bigger, we've kind of had to split it up separately, and now we have a registered charity which launched in 2021, and that's all around giving more girls opportunities to get involved in football, whether that's playing football or in careers in the game. And as a brand, we give a donation to that on a quarterly basis. Yeah, Miss Kick Foundation, two of the same, but different structures and how they're organised.
And when you went into the foundation and deciding to do that, how rewarding was that to sort of see it come to fruition, to see it thrive, and have a place and be wanted?
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, so we have a trustee board, and there's amazing trustees. We've got like Richard Frost, who's formerly at Nike, and Jaina Patel, who sits on the Premier League Charitable Fund. And we've recently launched a new program, which is called the Future Leaders Program, and that's all around funding girls to get their coaching badges and placing them in volunteer opportunities within Manchester and doing different sessions. And that's so amazing to see. We had one parent in particular, like he sent me an email after it, and he was saying how his daughter was like seen such a change in her and her confidence, and now she's like volunteering at a local football club and she's going to college to do media. And that's what I think the power of football is. Like, even though it's just a game, I think it builds so much confidence. There's so much research and data out there around like how something special about football and women and girls in building confidence and resilience and self-esteem. UEFA did this big research paper, and they found that girls who played football had higher levels of self-confidence, resilience, self-esteem than girls who played other sports and who didn't play sport at all. So for me, that's why I like that common theme. And it's been my common theme my whole life, hasn't it? Let's be honest, about how football's kind of played in my upbringing and then how I've shaped my career. And you see like things online about how, I don't know the percentages, but how girls who played team sports when they were younger, the percentage of those who then go on to be in like C-suite positions or entrepreneurs or leaders in society. So I'm hoping like that's kind of like what the foundation's role plays within Miss Kick. Yeah, it's tough because I can sit here sometimes and I'm on my screen all the time and I'm working hard, and then I'll go to like a foundation event and I'll be like, this is why
Yeah.
we exist. And it kind of brings me back down to like football and being on the pitch and why I set up the brand in the first place. So definitely personally plays a big role, but I think for the brand as well, it's amazing that we can offer that alongside the business as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it's so much more of a boots on the ground feel about it when you do the foundation, to the brand, because you get you get to see it firsthand. It reignites that passion, and yeah, but it's an amazing thing for you to be like, oh, this is what it was always meant to be. And you've mentioned there about the sort of the people that you've been working with. You did some work with Mitre and things like that. Is that just sort of a surreal moment when, I don't know if you approach them or they approach you, but either way, to sort of work with these brands that are so like reputable and have these people from, like I said, the Premier League and things like that? I bet you're just like, whoa, what is this, a
Yeah,
dream?
that was the Mitre one for me, was like a big one. Like, they did approach us, which was amazing. And like Mitre's such like an iconic English football brand.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
and they were like, can we work with you? And I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
So
me. Yeah, like,
yeah, it's crazy. They've been great, to be fair. They sponsored our Future Leaders program, so they funded the last cohort of girls. So we've collaborated on that, and then we did a piece of work last year where they have access because of they sponsor the FA Cup. They're the FA Cup ball, aren't they? So they allowed us access to a box at Wembley, and we surprised like some of the community. We told them they got like free tickets, but we didn't tell them that it was like in a box at
yeah.
Wembley. And like, you should have seen the face, like the girls were just like, the parents were crying. It's like, this is amazing. But no, they're great, and I'm hoping like that partnership will continue and we can continue to build other big partnerships. But yeah, the Mitre one for me was like No, this is not real.
Yeah, I could imagine it's such like a pinch me moment. But how important are collaborations with them? You know, them notable brands, them recognizable brands for continuing to push, especially the foundation forward.
Yeah, like where people see Miss Kick and we're still very small when you
Mm,
think about in comparison to these bigger brands. And I think the more brands we can get getting behind women's football who are relevant. I'm not saying like random brands, which you have seen actually where they've seen like women's football's kind of on the rise and it has a real good like feel good factor in. It's very inclusive, it has very good values. These big brands like are jumping on it. I'm not about that. I'm about like actual brands who care, and Mitre are one of those. You look at like the Zero partnership or the Adobe partnership, like these types of organizations getting behind women's football, I think is huge. And then obviously as Miss Kick, like us being having a relevance and relatability to a brand like that is only going to build credibility for what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's a win-win, and yeah, hopefully we see more.
yeah, and you mentioned you know, unfortunately in business in the world there are, you know, companies and organizations that just try and, you know, jump on a good thing and sort of make it like capitalist or make it something it's not. How how have you navigated that water? Is it just like a gut feeling? Is it, you know, speaking to your mentors, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, like it's interesting in the space being because I've been in the space for so long. Like I've been banging the women's football drum for like 7 years to see like the interest and impact it's having. And there's like a fine line between just letting people support because if they want to support financially, that's amazing for the game. If we look at the challenges at the moment, the game has grown, but the some of the clubs, especially kind of further down the tiers, are playing catch up. So having the financial resources is great, but it's about being authentic and, like I said, sharing those same values. So making sure, like, it's with any partnership, it's not just in women's football, but in general, like, you want to align with them because ultimately you're associating what you've built with
Mm.
what they've built. And people are smart nowadays. Like, people are like consumers are onto you. So if something feels fake,
Yeah.
they'll know and they'll call you out before you know it, you're on TikTok. So like it's up to brands, to be honest, to be aware of that and to kind of, yeah, like a gut, you kind of know. It's just all about values, and when you do speak to these people, like when we spoke to Maita, they were really aligned on what we wanted to achieve from the partnership. It wasn't them just giving Miss Kick money; they were giving money to our charitable funds, and they've come down. I'm sure you've seen on socials, like come down and really invested in the content, and they were very open to working with us and our ideas. They just didn't come in and kind of give us money and be like, "This is what we're doing." It was very collaborative. So I think just those kind of points are really important.
Yeah. Something I wanna touch on. Obviously, we've talked about Miss Kick now, the foundation, but talk about you, if that's okay, and sort of like the habits and the routines that you mentioned there. Sometimes you can find yourself sat on your screen, and then you go and be into the community, and it just reignites you. I always find it interesting to speak to people who, you know, have all these amazing things going on, and I think work life balance is such an interesting one. How do you find that generally to
Yeah,
almost not disassociate, but maybe disconnect and not let it be all consuming?
he got better. I've been Miss Kick. I will have been doing Miss Kick now for 7 years in June, which is a long time. And when I look back at like who I was, say 3, 4 years ago, I was working ridiculous hours and working, and I felt like I had to prove to everyone that I was still in the office, past 6 p.m. I wasn't looking after myself at all, like my health in terms of like my diet and going the gym. And I look back now and I think, oh, like she was actually really, like really sad.
Mm,
Which sounds silly because I
yeah.
was doing so well, like the business was doing so well, but personally, I was really probably really struggling. Whereas now, I think I'm much more self-aware about like how I'm feeling, and ultimately, like the better that I feel as a human being, the better choices I'm going to make, the better decisions I'm going to make, like the better I'm going to be for the people around me. Whereas before, I was just burnt out, like it
Mm,
was crazy. So I think it's just something that you go through as a founder. And I think work life balance is challenging because I think there are times in our lives where like work will take over, and that's okay. I don't think it's about having work life balance every single day. It's about like, okay, this week I'm gonna have to lean in. Like I've got loads of meetings, let's just smash it out. But then, all right, on the weekend, make sure you chill out. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
there'll be times where like it might be a bit quieter and you just got to accept like and enjoy those moments and not feel guilty for enjoying those moments, because I know when I've had like a nice chilled weekend. I'm fired and ready on Monday.
Yeah.
I think it's different for everyone. It's a very difficult difficult question to answer, but it's just about working with yourself and the way that you operate, and learning that about yourself. And the only way you can learn that is kind of going through it and kind of feeling things out.
Oh yeah, there's no greater sort of way to understand something than lived experience, is there?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
mentioned it there about you sort of answered a question that I was going to ask you about, feeling guilty when you're not working or feeling guilty when you're working too much. But if you look back at that person a few years ago who you said was, potentially struggling a little bit, what were the things that you implemented into your daily life or your routine and your structure that pulled you back in? Was it like things like scheduling, exercise, different things like that? Is there anything that you can pinpoint to be like, oh, this is what changed it for me?
yeah. Exercise for me was a big one. Like I would say probably 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was like out of shape, like completely out of shape, and I'd stopped playing football, and like that was a big part of who I was. And as soon as I got back in the gym, started training again, fell in love with training again, it completely transformed everything in my life. And probably like the past couple of years have been the most stressful. Like, and I think that person 3-4 years ago who wasn't looking after themselves, I don't think she would have been able to have coped with what's gone on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all come from just being like physically strong, and I think that's played a big part in my mentality and my drive to keep on going. So definitely exercise was a big one. I think like understanding like how to build your week and your routines, and actually really, and again it's something that I think about still to this day, and I don't have a full answer, but actually really knowing what you want out of your life, and then making sure that you're doing things that actually equate to getting there. Sometimes we can like kind of stumble through life and we're just like life's happening to us, but actually having a routine and having goals and being like, this is what I want to achieve this year or this month, and actually making sure that you're blocking out time to actually deliver on those goals rather than just letting your diary kind of take over your life. I think again,
Yeah.
back then I was just agreeing to everything because I felt like I had to, and I was probably doing a lot of stuff that wasn't actually adding any value to where I wanted to be. I was just kind of like, it was fun to be busy, and I love being busy, but you also have to be strategic in how you're busy, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense, and it's so interesting to see it from a point of view of again lived experience. And
Yeah.
I think planning and being organised is definitely something that I was terrible at. I'm not saying I'm any better at it now, but once you have structure and you have routine and things like that, you can remove sort of a little bit of anxiety from you there because you're like, right, if these are the fundamentals of what I'm doing, it's a no-brainer. It just almost becomes autopilot, and the more you can have an autopilot, the better, as long as it's efficient. But
Yeah.
yeah, you sort of mentioned there when you was talking about, like playing football, things like that. And do you think, you know, there's a pressure when you're in any sport, especially when like you're younger? I felt it myself when I played rugby, that it becomes so much of your identity to almost become to the top level. I know you alluded to it there. When you transitioned out of that and obviously you came out of the academies and things, did you feel like you had to put the same work ethic into Miss Kick and just be like, right, I've got to go 100 mile an hour, apply that grind mentality sort of thing into it? It's so easy done, isn't it, when you have a background in sport, to
Yeah.
just be like, you've just got to be the A tier athlete all the time, even if it's not in sport. And is that how
Yeah.
you felt with the transition from not playing anymore?
Yeah. So it was funny when I came out of, so I was 18, and when I got released from City, I was sick of football. Like I couldn't even watch it. I was so upset. And that coincided with me going to university. So you can imagine I was moving to Manchester. I was in Freshers Week, and I was like, right, I didn't know who I was. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And, like I remember one of my first early lectures because I did psychology. It was all around like identity theory and how we build this version of ourselves and like our circles. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I actually don't know who I am other than a footballer, and that's not even who I
yeah,
am anymore. So I felt like I didn't like I was completely lost for like 2 years. That was a really interesting time. But then yeah, you kind of like figure yourself out again, and yeah, football. Like I've definitely learned skills in being. I don't know. It's like that nature debate, isn't it? Like, am I
yes,
just like this, and I've
yeah,
just
yeah.
fell into football, and like now fell into business, or is the fact that I played football like that nature? set me up for a career in business. Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's sitting on the fence answer. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of like similarities in both, and having to be like a high performer and
100%.
dedicated and all
What
that.
do you think some of the the top characteristics and traits you learn from playing football and going into these academy structures? What do you think has been like the most transferable skill for you? Not even into business would be nice, but just into daily life as well.
I think it's just like work ethic,
Mm.
like knowing that if you want to achieve, you've got to work hard. I think if I was to truly reflect on football and like who I was very gifted, like talent wise. But did I work as hard away from training as some of the other players who have gone on to be playing for the Lionesses? Probably not. And I think that really taught me a hard lesson in that you might have the talent, but if you're not going to go away and put in the effort, then you're not going to get there. And that was a real big lesson that I learned early on in my life. So I think now with what I'm doing with Miss Kick, I have to grind. Like you have to grind. Obviously, not to the point of like going insane, but
Yeah.
that like work ethic and focus and determination, just like relentlessness, has to come through for you to like you set yourself a target. I'm not saying everyone has to go and be like this global brand. Like you don't have to do that, but if you do, then there's a reason why you have to work hard to achieve that.
100%. And it's
Yeah.
like that age-old expression in it is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
like that's something like you've all like if you've played sports, you've seen it, haven't you? Like all your
Yeah.
life. But when you mentioned about this is sort of what I wanted to ask you. Like you do have to work hard. You do have to commit, sacrifice things. But there's such a mentality around like hustle and grind culture now, isn't there? And like obviously again going back to your lived experience with this massive this thing that you've created and things like that, at what point do you now know that the alarm bells are ringing for like burnout and things like that?
Yeah, I think there'll be days where I'm like, I'm not enjoying this,
Mm,
and I'll have a meltdown thinking I don't like it anymore, but I'm just tired.
yeah.
Stop being dramatic.
Yeah, just need a nap and everything will be okay.
You'll feel physically exhausted if I start like moaning in my brain about it. I'm thinking you could probably do with a break here. So that's really interesting. I think again it's just something that you learn as you go along, and you'll learn to know like what your own. For me, it's like feeling tired and feeling grouchy and like not wanting to do the work. It's not because I hate the Miss Kick. It's just because I need a minute.
Yeah. And it goes back to that balance before what you was talking about, wasn't it? Of not feeling guilty when you're doing these different things.
Yeah.
Segueing into again like the work-life balance ratio of things, and something that I'm interested in, and if you obviously don't have to answer, but it'd be good if you did. But sort of I imagine it can be quite lonely when you're sort of just hyperfixating on getting to these places where you want to go. You have to make these sacrifices. Where do you sort of think that you mentioned mentors and stuff there? How important is it not to isolate yourself and just become all consumed by it?
Yeah, it's so important not to do that. Like when it was just me in those sort of year 1, 2, 3, the first 2 years, I was very much threw myself into like accelerator programs, which are like startup programs where you get support because of that exact reason, and you'd be put into a cohort of like other founders and other business owners who are exactly in the same position as you. And for me that was so vital because especially as a first time founder, as a young founder, I was 21 and I was going into meetings, and looking back, if I didn't have people around me to advise, I could have been like eaten up, or like
Yeah,
I wouldn't. You don't know how to make decisions because you've never been there before. Firstly, for your own like mental health and like motivation, surrounding yourself with other people who are on that journey with you. Like there's people who I still speak to now who we were both starting out like 5 years ago, just for support, but then also like the advice and the guide. Like it's hard because there's been people who have advised me in the past who've then like tried to they've kind of come back around and they've not been great people. But then there's other people who have been absolute lifesavers, and it's tough, especially as I was young. I was 21, and I'm trying to figure out like who to trust and who to believe. And it is mad. I think how like you do stumble through it.
yeah.
Yeah, it is so important, that one. because otherwise you'll end up just sat at home. One thing that recently we've had a bit of like a shift in business model for Miss Kick. So we went from it being like a team and I'd have like people around me all the time, whereas now we've licensed the brand name out to a bigger organisation, and I work now with a company that has like 140 staff, and like it's all really exciting. But I only go to work with them 1 day a week now in the office. Every other day I'm at home, and that's been a big shift from being
Yeah.
like a small team and we were kind of like us against the world mentality to now like being in like a corporate business. It's great for the brand, but for me personally, like it's not something that kind of goes away. It's something
Yeah.
that you've always got to check in with yourself. So I'm trying to figure out now how I can not be in the house as much. It doesn't
Yeah.
help that,
No,
but
no.
yeah, it kind of, it's something that you've always got to be aware of.
And how important is not being stagnant? Because you've just given a great example of that there by saying, you know, you went from like a small team setup to, you know, working with this bigger corporation, getting involved in a more corporate aspect of things, for lack of a better term. But how important is it to? Because I can imagine that sometimes you might have met people along the way. I know through other people I've met in the past in their businesses, a lot of what holds them back is the refusal to change or do anything different. And is that a fair sort of assumption
Yeah,
to make?
yeah. Like I remember vividly last year, and we'd been through a lot, and the company was basically there's three of us, and we moved the offices to Skem, where I'm from. We're in this industrial estate in this tiny office, and I was like, something needs to change, yeah, otherwise we're never going to get out of this space. Like we didn't have the financial resources to grow, and it was doing good, but I've always had big ambitions, and sometimes you have to take risks and you have to make really difficult decisions. And I ultimately had this opportunity come across my table where this company was like, and it was a conversation I'd been having with them for like, it didn't happen overnight, it was like 9 months, and trying to figure out like what that next step was. And for me to sign that deal, I was basically like getting rid of my team, moving the business to Huddersfield, and it was a really difficult thing to do. Like they were my two best friends in the world, but you have to take the risk
Yeah,
to
yeah,
grow.
yeah,
It is like I've only been working with them now for a short period of time, and I absolutely love it, and I'm really grateful I did. But you know, some people will just kind of sat. I was cushy. I was in like I had a nice like I could work with my friends. I could be in the office. I could be working at home. Like I was in a cushy little environment. But I was like, I'm not growing here. I'm not around people where I'm learning. I wasn't learning. I'd stopped learning. That's probably the answer.
yeah.
Learning. Whereas now I'm like learning everything. I'm working with professionals and learning so much. So I think yes, some people probably wouldn't have took that risk, but you got to.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense when you listen to it, and I can only imagine how daunting that must be, and sort
Yeah.
of the implications that has. Because, like I said, when you're working with your friends and things like that, I imagine it must have been like sleepless nights.
Oh, it was awful. It was really difficult, and sometimes you move on so quickly that you forget like actually what happened. So
Yeah.
when you go
Sorry if I've just brought anything up here.
but no, that's it. This is the reality. Like this is the truth and the honesty, and it's all part. Like any person who's gone on and to achieve something, they'll have had moments where like it's gone wrong and they've had to make tough decisions. But that's kind of like what you sign up for.
And segueing sort of into where I wanted to go next is, you see on social media so often this almost like ideal, idyllic sort of transition from being, you know, nothing to this big, you know, multi-millionaire. You see it so often, and they never highlight these real life events that obviously you just mentioned there, which was a really good example and things like that. And where I wanted to go was obviously social media and things is now a massive part of brands. You mentioned about TikTok before and things like that. How how do you even, because obviously I have to do it for the podcast and I'm terrible at it, but like how do you even keep up with it? How do you even sort of plan
Yeah,
it?
it's a lot. Like for us as a brand as well, our consumer and customers on social. So that's how I got like the early traction for the brand because it's free. Like
Mm,
you're not paying for it. You can get mad views, do you know what I mean, on TikTok and Instagram if you do it right. So for us as a strategy, it's a big part of what we do. It's an absolute full-time job in itself. Like it's crazy. And but with social media, I find the more you put in, the more you get out. So last year when I had a bit more time, I was smashing the content and we grew so quickly. But now obviously like I'm a bit of like a, well, not one man band, but I've got a lot on, so I don't put as much time in. So I think it's about being smart with social and trying to, when you do have time, like trying to schedule time to come up with it, like the curate the content, then film it and then edit. I always block that out in my calendar. And I'm very fortunate now. I work with an amazing young. It's actually funny. She's a customer of Miss Kick. Met her when she was 11 at tournaments. She's 17 now. She's grew up with the brand, and now she supports me with the socials. So she's pretty cool. So I have a bit of help now for the Miss Kick channel. Her name's Lola. So I think finding, like, people love social media and they want to get involved in it. So if you have like a small brand or business, you'd be very lucky. Like, it's quite easy to find someone to support you on that because they can get the experience as well. But I think, yeah, being really strategic with your time and investing in like the content that you know is going to perform well. For example, at Miss Kick, we know training content or educational content, anything on the pitch, those reels perform really well. So we would just go for like half a day and we'd like batch film like 10, 15 pieces of content. And then you've got that then for like the next 3 weeks. So I think it's very, very tough. But it's just like blocking out time in your calendar to do that. Yeah, I don't envy anyone.
Oh, literally, when I first started this, like, obviously, I don't have a great like following or anything like that, but even just sort of keeping it churning, getting it out,
Wrong.
and I've found that for the most part, it's a very positive experience, and obviously the followers you've got on the Miss Kick and things like that are amazing, massive numbers, and then some of them. How do you deal with what I imagine, with the positive, there's always negative. How
Yeah.
was that to deal with for the first time when it sprung up? If it did, I'm just assuming that there definitely would be.
You said that the first thing that came to mind was we did an article for the Daily Mail, and it was like Miss Kick, like women's football brand. And I remember reading, like, being dead excited for it to go out, and I read all the comments, and I was like, it was just like the worst thing. I remember crying to my mum, like, do you know, just people like just saying like, this is the worst idea ever, like this is
Just
sexist.
flogging you. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is awful, like what, like commenting on my appearance, and I was just like, oh my god, I remember sitting like literally just outside there crying. I can laugh now, but at the time it's so scary.
Mm,
We did stuff with like Sport Bible, again, kind of like, because obviously it's like quite male dominated channels, I imagine.
yeah.
Just there's some people still out there who say like the maddest things.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like when we get comments and that, like it's just silly people, like get back in the kitchen, like silly stuff that's just not
Yeah.
offensive.
And it's engagement. So who's the real winner?
But
You. I mean, yeah, like when people comment shit on anything that I've got, I will most likely just put like some passive aggressive emoji or like
yeah,
a laughing face. And I'm like, you're just giving us engagement. Like
yeah,
you're helping me out. So keep it
yeah,
coming if you really want.
yeah. It is so, like, I think anyone, like, it is tough to
Yeah,
read
initially.
those comments, but yeah, it's just like comes with it. Kind of
You
comes with
just
this.
develop like a bulletproof skin eventually, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not there yet. Like, but yeah, I definitely, like, now if that article was to go out, like I would just be like, that's funny. Whereas
Mm.
a few years ago I was like heartbroken.
And it's absolutely crazy, isn't it, that you could, well, from my experience, you could have like 10 positive comments and then one slight negative one, and that one just derails you 100 times more than
Yeah,
any of the positive ones do. And I'm glad you
yeah.
just agreed with me because I was like, am I just being soft? But
No,
it is crazy, isn't it?
yeah, or like say if someone emails and something's broke. I'm like, this is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Melanie. Like, I didn't mean to break. Like, it just ruined your day. Yeah, but it's like, I think just as human beings, that's just something that we sadly are. We detect danger, don't we? Like that's
Yeah,
what our brains are
yeah. Try
set
and
up
fix
to.
it.
Yeah,
How important do you think this? Because I didn't know you did a psychology degree, but now sort of talking to you and when you like you go back to snippets of it and things like that, how important do you think that's been to your success? To like almost, it feels like you're very good at taking a step out from yourself and then like assessing it.
yeah. I think indirectly, like even though I have quoted like a few psychology things, I don't sit there and think, oh, I remember when I read this textbook and this is why I'm behaving this way. I think indirectly or like unconsciously feels that you learn in psychology and understanding human behavior, and like even not even the degree, but I've always been really interested in like reading like personal development books and just being really curious around like why we are the way we are. I think that's given me a like an advantage in terms of understanding like why I might be feeling in a certain way or why someone else might be reacting in a certain way. And Yeah, I think in business, a big thing is being like good with people. You know, I've seen people who are like really bad at the job, but they're really great people, and they're really charismatic, and they do so well. And I think that's a skill that's not thought about enough. Like, if you have both, great, but actually being able to like go into a room of people and like captivate their attention and tell a story in a way that's going to engage them and hold a conversation, like things like that, that I think people don't think about.
Yeah, massively overlooked interpersonal skills, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you sort of see that with the the avenue in which society, without getting too much into it, is that it's just everyone's on the phones, everyone's got like TikTok brain. No one really has a conversation anymore. So when you get the opportunity to speak to someone, and this is why I love doing this, because it's like there's no distraction. There's you just literally like tune into having a conversation with someone,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, it's sort of the reason I enjoy doing it, is that you can just have a really good chat with people. But yeah, it is crazy when you mention there that it's not that common that people have like interpersonal skills anymore.
Yeah, it is crazy. And especially I think about like the next generation coming through, like you say, are more, we were talking about this yesterday actually with my mum. I was like, I was probably like the last generation who didn't have the phone during like growing up.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for
yeah.
that.
I
Because
think
you
we're a
look,
similar age, and like yeah, you. I still remember people don't even play out, and like I can't
what a
even.
shame.
I know, like it's mad.
Because we look at like, if you look at the data again around like obviously my passion and spaces in women and girls, like there are like rising cases of mental health amongst women and girls. Girls like twice as likely to suffer with things like anxiety, depression. You're looking at like body confidence and all those things. Like it's such a big problem in society, and I think a part of that obviously is the social media epidemic. And yeah, I mean, adolescence. I finished watching that. Not, I feel like
I
everyone's.
started it last night.
All right, no spoilers.
No spoilers, no
No spoilers.
spoilers. But like 2 episodes in, I'm like, fuck,
It's
like this is
killing me.
mad. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I won't, no spoilers, but like it's in my brain, like things like that. I think there will be a shift eventually, or I hope there will be a shift in like digital and technology and supporting young people. This just took a turn.
I'm all for it.
Why am I talking about this? So I hope there will be like a turn where we will support young people to get off the phones. And I think naturally you're seeing things like running clubs and people getting out more, like out of COVID, that I think we'll go into this like hole of digital, and then eventually we'll all want to come out of it because it's
Yeah, it
not.
goes full circle.
Yeah,
Everything goes full circle, doesn't it? And you think
yeah.
that, yeah, what, just get outdoors, appreciate how good it is.
And
Yeah,
talk, like say, talk to people, speak to
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah,
People
exactly. Yeah,
um,
instead of just like
we're
sending
so
a message.
weird, so ironic that we're doing this.
Yeah,
On,
I always say that. So like when I do this, and I'm like, oh, well, technology has its faults, but it has its positives. I'm sat here doing this on
yeah,
this,
I'm
but
in
like,
this. I can't actually get anywhere.
yeah, yeah. This is why we're doing it. It would have been in person if not.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll have to put a disclaimer in at the bottom
yeah,
that yeah, although we're slagging it off, we are using it. Before you go, there's always
yeah.
2 questions that I ask people.
Yeah.
The first one is if there was 3 habits you would recommend to the everyday person to improve their everyday life, what would they be and why?
Number one is exercise. I know this is so boring, but genuinely, exercise has got me through the past 2 years. I would have crumbled. I don't have the science around like what actually happens when you exercise, but 100% it's made me mentally stronger. That would be my first one. My second one is to like really understand like what you want to achieve. Like I mentioned before, like you can kind of get dragged through life, and before you know it, like you're in a position where you're like, I don't want to be here. So actually, number one, like setting a goal
Mm,
or goals that you want to achieve, and it's not just in business. It's not just like business goals. It's like where you want, like what you want your life to look like, and then actually like building a routine around that. And then thirdly, it's kind of like you've probably on like Grace Beverly's time blocking stuff.
yeah, I've seen it. I like. Have you seen Ali Abdal's? No. Oh, check that one out. I'll check that one out. You check that one out. But yeah, yeah,
Time blocking for me has been really key. So actually, like when you've had your goals of what you want to achieve, then like actually putting in like on my calendar on my phone between like 8 and 4 what I'm actually going to do every single hour,
yeah,
like even when I'm going to eat. I
yeah,
schedule
yeah.
when. Otherwise, the day just rules you, and you want to rule the day.
Love that.
I don't know if that's someone's quote, but I've just used
It
it.
can be your quote.
Thank you.
We'll trademark it to you. You can have it. Yeah, yeah. If anyone else has said it, you've not trademarked it. We've just decided that it's now Grace's.
Thank you.
The next one, a bit of a curveball of that. If there is one habit or routine that you've never done and wanted to do or have done in the past, and you could reintroduce it to your life, what would that be and
Do you know what
why?
I've always wanted to do and never been able to stick to it? Journal.
Journal. You know what? Same. Like I have so many people on here who say that. Normally, you go to is meditation or journaling for what people want to do, and when I've done journaling, I found it so beneficial. But it's just something that if I miss a day, I just can't. Like I have no idea if it structure it. I have no idea if it do it. But yeah, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I used to have this like diary because obviously when you plan your day, in the diary it was like 3 things you're grateful for.
Mm.
I used to do that every day, and I don't know if it was made a difference or not, but like I've seen people talk about how like they'll go because you want to get your thoughts out of your brain onto paper and like how good that is for you in terms of like mental clarity and whatnot. But I've just like you say, I've never been able to kind of find a habit or like a routine to slot it in. Maybe I'm going to try again.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe this can be what's
It's
holding you
fine.
accountable. You've said it now. Yeah,
I
so
know.
yeah, yeah. But
I need to. I actually bought a journal, and it's like in that drawer,
it's there looking at you. It's
like
saying,
all
"Listen,
pages done.
I can hear what you're saying. It's gonna change." But honestly, it's one of them things. Like there is studies and papers to suggest that when you do gratitude journal and things like that, that the impact that that has on you. Because I had a guy on last week who's backpacking from Wigan in England to Wigan in the Philippines, and for Andy's Man Club, and like honestly, it's the most mental journey. But like Andy's Man
There's a
Club
Wigan.
changed
Wait, there's a Wigan in.
in the Philippines. I did not
No,
know this. Being a Wiganer, I was shocked
that's
when I
so.
first come across it. His name's Coal to Coconut, which is just fantastic. But yeah, he was talking about how like when he went to Andy's Man Club, a big thing of what they do is reflect on something positive and something negative, and that was like a catalyst of changing his life. So if that's an example of gratitude working, what is?
Yeah.
So before we go, if you don't mind staying on at the end when we've finished recording and we can catch up about it, but let people know where they can find you. Let people know where they can find out more about Miss Kick, the foundation, what you do, everything.
Okay, so if you search Miss Kick on any social platform, you should find us. So please do that, and then I'm just Grace Vella on everything.
Perfect. Short and sweet. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.